start. This is my third attempt at recording part 4 of my ET Experiencer videos, because the past 2 attempts, the first one came out completely blurred, and what happened the second time? But anyway, this is the third time. Oh yeah, the memory card was full, which was quite peculiar. Because I'd only recorded a few videos, but apparently it was taking up my entire memory. Anyway, so this is the conclusion of my ET Experiencer videos. I hope to do a talk at some point in the future with another experiencer. Certainly in the next few weeks. It's just finding someone who wants to have a talk about their experiences and share ideas about what's currently happening in the ET Experiencer community and what the presence of the ETs says about what's happening on the planet and what their intentions are. So that takes me to my actual face-to-face encounter with the ETs, although on that particular occasion I wasn't actually in physical contact with them, as I have been in the past a few times. So I was in the habit of going to bed very late, more or less around 5 AM. My marriage was actually failing, and I didn't really want to go to bed, to be honest, for a variety of different reasons, and I was staying up until I was just totally exhausted and then going to bed. And so I was used to being up very late and not being tired until sort of 4 or 5 in the morning. Crazy as that sounds. And it's about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I've drunk half a bottle of beer, and I decide to go and open another bottle of beer. I go to the fridge, take a bottle of beer out, and I go to the sink, which is next to the kitchen window, to get hold of the bottle opener. And I open the bottle and I glance outside and see 2 shapes, 2 white shapes. And my first impression was my neighbours have come into my garden, as they sometimes do, to kindly wheel my bin back in for me, which they do sometimes, but they never actually go that far into the garden, so that, I was a bit mystified. And I could see these 2 white figures moving around, so I came up closer and leaned over the sink through the window, and I could make out as the light from the light from the ceiling lights, LED bulbs, shone out into the garden. I could make out 2 distinct white figures who were around 4 foot to 4 foot 4 inches tall. And they had, rather than the wraparound eyes of the greys, the classic grey ET, they had human eyes, human-shaped eyes, but much larger. So essentially the eyes were perhaps 4 times larger than your average human eye, and the heads were oversized, similar to a grey. They were very thin, and with long arms, much longer than would seem normal for someone of that height. Thin, large heads, 4 foot 4 inches tall approximately, with very large eyes. Now the other strange thing about them was, firstly, they weren't wearing any clothes. The second thing is they were not. They had a strange, non-distinct quality to their physicality. So, for example, I couldn't look through them to see the rest of the garden or what was behind them, because they were solid enough for me, for their bodies to block out what was immediately behind them. However, there was something about the texture of their, the texture from looking at them, the sort of a certain indistinct, indeterminate quality about where their bodies weren't distinctly sharp, so there was a faint glow about them, and the impression I got was that although they were physical, they were physical in a way that we would not understand. Their materiality was far subtler, and yet they were far more solid than you would expect from a spirit form, for example. So many spirit forms can be seen through, they're transparent. These beings I could not see through, and I got the impression that if I were to touch them or be touched by them, that I would feel a sense of physicality. So the impression was that they had bodies, if you like, that vibrated at a much higher frequency than our own, or alternatively that they were semi-materialized. So there are two beings. One of them is looking straight at me into my eyes. I can't see the pupils of the eyes, but I can see that the eyes are looking straight into mine, and what I'm picking up on in some way, how I'm not sure, but in some way I can't explain, is a great sense of love from the one being, and this beautiful sense of kinship, love towards a being that you know and love. It was like a sense of kinship, the way that you would be with a family member or someone that you have unconditional love for. So yeah, what I was getting was a sense of unconditional love. And that lasted for around a minute. Now the second being is doing something quite different. He is going backwards and forwards behind, right next to them. There is at the end of the path there is a section that bends to the left, where I store the bikes and where the bins are. And if you walk down there, you can see through the back window of the extension of the house, which is a utility room and doubles as a sort of guest bedroom. And this second being is going backwards and forwards from next to the other being to the area somewhere near the window. And then moments later he'd come back, and then he'd go back to the area by the window and come back again. And the strange impression was of almost like a caged animal. There was a kind of repetitiveness to the to his I say his, I don't know that it is a he, but that was what I felt. A sort of strange, frustrated repetitiveness to his behaviour, going backwards and forwards. And it was in marked contrast to the other being, who initially is looking at me with this beautiful love, unconditional love emanating from him. But neither of them are threatening in any way, and what I get from both of them is a sort of beautiful, deeply spiritually evolved, childlike quality from both of these beings. Now, after a minute, the being who has been projecting, if you will, projecting this love towards me, also starts to behave slightly unusually. And I'm standing in front of the window, so I'm blocking off part of the kitchen. So he would have a limited view. And what he starts to do is tilt his head like this, as if he's trying to look over my shoulder, this being that's been stood still for a minute. And so I've got one being that's going backwards and forwards to the back window. This is what I think he's doing. Maybe looking through the back window. And a second being who is now trying to look around me, as if looking for something specific. I know how bizarre that sounds, but I can only tell you what actually happened. So both of them now appear to be looking for something, or someone. And I'm transfixed. I can't move, and I consciously thought I could go and get the camera and try to film this, but I knew that if I moved from the spot, when I came back they wouldn't be there anymore. So I didn't move, I just stood at the window and stared. I couldn't take my eyes off them. And the whole experience lasts for 3 minutes. And after 3 minutes, one moment I'm looking at them, barely daring to even blink. And the next moment, they have just dematerialized. It's just instantaneously not there. Gone. And that was the experience. I was pretty mind blown. I tried to work out afterwards what was it that they were looking for, who was it that they were looking for. I wondered whether there was another being, one of their friends, so to speak, inside the house, or whether they knew of another type of entity that might be in the house, or whether they had just come to see me and were curious about the inside of my house. And I can't answer that. I have no idea. I mean, I can say that I've experienced all kinds of shadow beings and other beings inside the house, so you know, you could kind of guess at them, you know, being concerned that there was something in the house and they were coming to check out to see what entities were in there. But equally, it could have been pure curiosity. So that was my most recent significant experience with the ETs. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting for that. I've had some ET experiences stopping here recently, and another ET experiencer will be stopping with me for a while in a month or so. So I'm hoping that having multiple ET experiences in the same house triggers something, because certainly when Rebecca was here, it did trigger some very interesting orb sightings where there were orbs actually flying erratically, one around the other. I hope to be able to give you some more experience, share some more experiences with you in the future. And also, I intend to do a talk with other experiencers and explore some of the possibilities of why they're here. I could do that myself right now, but it would be so much nicer to be able to bounce off some other people and also share other people's ideas rather than simply give you my ideas of what might be happening. But I do believe that the ETs not only understand dimensions, but I strongly feel that they also understand the purpose of all life and things that we would think of as appertaining to the spiritual dimension. I believe that they understand an awful lot of the fundamental aspects of the meaning of all life and reincarnation, and the purpose of the manifestation of the multiverse in terms of why this universe and other universes originally came into existence, and why we are here having experiences in this material density and in other densities once we leave the body. I believe that the ETs are aware of the answers to a lot of these things, and I hope that I will be able to share a talk with you at some point in the future about my ideas on that. Anyway, thanks again for waiting for this video. I know it's been way too long, and sorry to leave you with the cliffhanger last time. Okay.